Something's been on my mind recently.
Beatboxing pop.
Have you ever been just completely and utterly enthralled by something? Not because it's awe-inspiring or deeply moving, and not because it confuses you either, but just because it begs so many questions. There's a movie that does this to me. It's not The Room, nor is it a Neil Breen original. It's a little ditty called Our Drawings Princess Movie by Calobi Productions, an original animated film that showed up on YouTube a few months ago. Watching this movie is an exercise in resignation. It's akin to trying to dash through molasses or swim against the current. At some point, all you can do is relax and just let it happen. The first 10 minutes are a shock to the system, and by the 30-minute mark, you'll have fully experienced the 5 stages of grief. You just have to let go and accept every choice it makes, lest you exhaust yourself. And if you're confused as to why I'm approaching this movie with the same sincere, analytical lens I'd bring to Endwalker or Persona, that's okay, because I am too. Our Drawings is baffling, both in its constructions and how it won't leave my mind. I keep thinking about it, keep picking it over, but there's no real nutrients there, nothing that I would normally latch onto. It's like a block of ramen noodles sitting in my stomach, or a McDonald's burger that doesn't decay. Maybe those descriptions are harsh, and I'll be the first to admit that it would be really easy to sit here and trash on this movie, but I need to say right here and right now that I won't do that. I hate doing that sort of thing, and I can't bring myself to be mean for no reason. Because no matter how clunky this flick is, it's not deserving of pure derision. It's still an artistic endeavor that a very small team embarked on and managed to complete, and before I do anything else, I need to applaud that. Calobi Productions, congratulations on completing your project. You deserve to celebrate that victory. I'm proud of you for all the work you put in. You set out to make a 3D animated movie, and you did it. That's no small feat, don't forget that. The thing is, I'm an artist too. Not an animator, but I am a writer and a sculptor and a cosplayer and quite a few other things. I respect the hustle. I know what it's like to pour thousands of hours into your craft, to have a vision and toil to bring it into reality. So the best way I can show you respect, artist to artist, is to meet your movie in good faith and dissect it as I would any other piece of media. There's gonna be critique here, but that's all part of good faith. I promise to be fair. But you, person watching this, in all likelihood, you're not Calobi. You may have no clue what I'm talking about, so let's give a quick rundown to get everybody caught up. Calobi Productions is a YouTube channel dwelling in the cartoonosphere. They mainly make 2 types of videos, the first being original animations, often featuring popular characters like Mario or SpongeBob, and the second being what I can only describe as cartoon clickbait. These can be relatively benign concepts like top 10 lists and things you missed videos, or content meticulously calibrated in a lab to hijack the attention of 11-year-olds, like... Or... One particular fixation Calobi seems to have is on a crazy rules in cartoon households type video, wherein the thumbnail depicts a cartoon character's father ostensibly about to beat them with a belt.
Go to the church and ask God to forgive you.
I'm not gonna spend much time on the latter category, mostly because there just really isn't much to say here. What's far more relevant to our topic, Our Drawings Princess Movie, is Calobi's history with animation and genuine dedication to the medium. While I am, admittedly, quite put off by the massive trove of questionable clickbait that seems to pander to children, any investigation of this channel will make it apparent that Calobi is an aspiring animator, who has put in some real legwork and truly does care for their craft. Our Drawings did not spring from the ether fully formed and unprecedented. It's preceded by years of work in amateur animation. Look back on Calobi's own discussions regarding their work, and you'll find many references to the development of an animated movie. It's from these improvised archives that we can also learn a little bit about the movie's troubled production. The most important insight gained from perusing these old videos regards a catastrophic loss of progress that occurred when Calobi's computer kicked the bucket. This happened in 2021, 4 years after development had begun and 2 years before the final product would be posted. Now, I'm wading into the realm of speculation here, but I imagine such a significant setback could be to blame for some of the repeated or clunky animations in the movie. What I don't think this can explain are the more major issues in the execution of the feature as a whole. Here's where I get really into my own realm of expertise, because I'm not really qualified to judge the animation of an independent project like this. I could talk about my thoughts on character design or fluidity of movement till the cows come home, but ultimately the sum of my contributions would be meager. I'm only really a hobbyist in the realm of illustration and know nothing of animation. What I do know about is writing. There's a comment that I think perfectly encapsulates my thoughts on our drawings.
This is a great case study on the importance of writers.
Because frankly, this script is a complete mess. I could give a vague plot synopsis, but even trying to describe the most basic aspects of the plot becomes a quagmire of forgotten villains, inconsequential characters, and plot threads that fray into oblivion. The movie starts with 5 consecutive introduction sequences. The first 10th of this movie is the same information repeated over and over. It's disorienting, like watching a rewrite happen in real time. In a way, that does kind of set the mood perfectly for the story that follows. Our drawings feels more like a series of disconnected scenes rather than a cohesive story. Things just sort of happen, often without discernible reason or explanation. You can make out that someone is stealing Paige's drawings, and that she and her friends go into her world to fight against this malevolent force. But that's kind of the most I can say about the overall sequence of events. There's almost never any transition from idea to idea. Instead, it feels more like a bunch of small, vaguely related vignettes attached with scant sinew at best. Take for instance Pillow, Paige's sister and the apparent villain for half the movie. She straight up admits to being the one stealing Paige's drawings. She plainly tells us her motivation, and she and the protagonist duke it out. But then, as quickly as she appears, she disappears. This is not acknowledged by the characters within the work, who snap right back to trying to discover and cure what's plaguing the world of Paige's drawings. As it turns out, there is a second, completely unrelated bad guy, who also admits to his evil doings, plainly states his motivations, and then dukes it out with the protagonist. These feel like 2 different drafts of the same story, but rather than refining and expanding on one preferred version, the 2 were just haphazardly glued together. Our drawings has so many ideas, and it struggles to communicate them, even when looking straight into the camera and trying to directly explain itself. Calobi clearly has a lot on their mind about what art means and the difficulties of trying to get by in the world as an artist. This project is neither cynical nor soulless. There's genuine passion here, but it just can't express itself. So I want to do my best to engage with what Calobi was trying to say. I need to give you an unironic thematic breakdown of our drawing's princess movie. I need that like a fish needs water. I need that like these cartoon characters need to not get beat with a belt. If I were to put into words the core premise of the film, it's that art is a difficult but rewarding endeavor. Illustration, animation, all the visual arts, they're undervalued despite being both beloved by and necessary to humanity as a whole. The antagonists in our drawings look to reap the benefits of art without doing the actual work of creating. They recognize that art is valuable, but don't respect the skill itself. Nor does their appreciation of art's value extend beyond monetary incentives. First we have Pillow, Paige's sister and self-proclaimed, and self-assured, art thief. Pillow never puts in any effort to honing her own skills, instead quickly turning to tracing. And let's put a pin in that whole tracing thing, because I do not love the conversation our drawings has about it. Anyway, Pillow is our stand-in for bog-standard art theft. She takes things she didn't make and reposts them, looking to amass fortune and fame off the backs of other people's work. It's not about creation, it's about rewards. Pillow's not a terror because she's interested in making a living off art. All these characters are, as aspiring animators and illustrators, but Pillow is cast in the negative here because she cannot be bothered to cultivate anything on her own. She gave up, and in her bitterness, she justifies her actions by writing off Paige as unfairly talented. She attempts to completely discredit the time and effort others have put into their craft. Pillow's mindset and actions are evocative of widespread issues that plague online art communities. Art is reposted without permission or credit constantly, sometimes by ignorant fans that legitimately enjoy the artist's work, and sometimes by malevolent actors looking to pass off other artists' work as their own. The basic decency of crediting someone for their work is still flagrantly sidestepped every day. In the last year, art theft has gained a sinister new layer through the use of algorithmic, quote-unquote, AI models. Whole portfolios can be stolen and fed into machines to soullessly recreate approximations of a given artist's style. This is art theft, full stop. There is no such thing as ethical AI image generation. And if you're okay with AI generation, you are not my friend, do not pass go, do not collect $200, and do not come to my Barbie-themed birthday bash. If there's one thing I wholeheartedly agree with in our drawing's messaging, it's that art takes time and effort. Our protagonists are people that actively and honestly work to improve their craft, whereas the antagonists are people who lie, cheat, and attempt to exploit other artists. The message sent here is that consistent effort and authenticity are the highest virtues for an artist. Taking shortcuts and preying upon other people doesn't just impede one's own improvement, but it actively turns you into a villain. This theme is consistent across the work and fairly solid, so score 1 for Calobi there. It also manages to raise a question. Is all that effort worth it when the payoff is so minimal? Pillow's messy inclusion and swift exit aside, the main villain of our drawing's princess movie is the cast's art teacher, a burnt-out, embittered old man who is snapped after a lifetime of hard work has netted him neither payoff nor respect. Basically, he's the Joker for artists. He's an example of how this story's framework for virtue can heel turn into villainy. There's nothing fundamental or unique about the art teacher that predisposes him towards evil. He's just another artist like our main cast, but he's had enough of being spat upon by the world. So what's the remedy for that? How will Paige and friends avoid becoming just like him? Well, there's not really a clear answer here. Once again, our drawing's lack of detail and planning in its writing are its downfall. I can trace these connections between the protagonists and antagonists mostly through implication and popular tropes. The work itself never meaningfully engages with these concepts and themes. The best I can really pull from its climax and resolution is, it's a matter of willpower. Just don't be like the art teacher. Don't be like Pillow. This is your brain on art theft. It's after-school special level stuff. There's a real lack of finesse here. The soggy writing is the work's Achilles heel. It's what makes it so baffling and difficult to follow and comprehend. It also causes a few troubling implications to crop up due to a lack of care and consideration, or personal bias that Calobi failed to weed out in subsequent drafts, if there was ever any more than a single draft. Take this wizard character that shows up early on in the movie. This is your standard online troll. It's cut and dry. You couldn't get more archetypical if you tried. That in itself isn't a problem. Shallow critique and bullying is a pertinent issue to the greater theme of living and persisting as an artist. Where it goes wrong, I think, is that Calobi is a bit too emotionally invested in this straw man. There's a lot of frustration here. You can really feel that this scene was penned based on personal experiences. It's in the same vein as a child fantasizing about becoming a superhero and beating up their schoolyard bullies. And that means it loses objectivity and consideration. Clearly, Calobi sees themselves as on the side of justice and reason here, a righteous avenger putting this kind of jabroni in their place. But that bias causes this line.
What the flap? Why isn't this drawing coming to life?
It's because your drawing isn't good enough for the magic to work. Just give up, wizard.
So, what's the greater implication here? Like, I get that this is someone taking their anger out on a straw man, but it's situated within a larger artistic work, thus it contributes to the overall message. How am I meant to interpret this besides, some people just aren't good enough? The unfortunate implication here is that passion or sincerity don't actually have anything to do with your validity as an artist. The only thing that matters is skill. All that matters at the end of the day is what you produce. This, of course, comes into direct conflict with the message of perseverance and honesty that our drawings wants to champion. If the quality of what you produce is the only thing that matters at the end of the day, why not steal? Why not trace? Bear in mind, I know this isn't what this scene was meant to portray. I know this isn't what the movie is trying to tell us. I know this was just supposed to be a fun takedown of everyone's least favorite type of guy, but consider how this section builds into the larger theme of the video as a whole. Writing is important. Back to business, let's talk about tracing. There's another fumble that rubs me the wrong way. Pillow is criticized, in part, for tracing other people's drawings. Except the other people's drawings part is never actually specified, so we're left with a vague condemnation of tracing as a whole. Worse yet, tracing is part of what's cited as holding her back from improving as an artist. The issue here is that tracing can actually be very helpful for studying style and improving your own understanding of anatomy, composition, etc. Tracing Pokemon cards is how I learned to hold a pencil without shaking as a kid. At the same time, though, tracing existing art, passing it off as your own, very bad. I'm guessing the latter is what Pillow was doing, but without specification, we're left with a blanket denouncement of tracing in any context. That's not really helpful. It ends up admonishing people for one of the most basic types of practice. Specificity, context, consideration, our drawings lacks these things at almost every turn, and it ends up a bit of a hot mess because of that. There's very little flow or connection between the scenes. Everything just sort of happens. The lack of connective tissue between story beats ends up jerking the viewer around instead of flowing them naturally through the story. Neither the plot nor core message here are fundamentally bad. There's nothing at the base of this narrative that's inherently rotten, but it has no structure to support it. It's like a beanstalk without a trellis. It all ends up a tangled mess in the mud. This is a great case study on the importance of writers. I don't know if our drawings could have been legendary or heartwarming, but it could have at least been something if it had the structure and support behind it, if it had a competent writer. It spends so much time extolling the importance of the arts and of respecting artists. All the while, it ends up an absolutely maddening contradiction due to its sheer ambivalence towards the written word. Writing is an art too. It really is. The focus of this narrative is clearly on the visual arts with a heavy tilt towards animation. It doesn't have to be about authors or include a scriptwriter in its main cast of characters, but the sheer incompetence of the narrative's construction and execution shows a flippancy towards writing on a metatextual level. There's a dramatic irony that plays out beyond the four borders of the YouTube video. Calobi is sincerely pleading with the audience to consider the effort and passion of visual artists, all while slipping out on a banana peel called authorship. It just kind of makes me sad. The reality is, all the challenges facing artists that our drawing tackles are things that apply to writers too. We spend hours and hours honing our craft for very little recognition. The pieces we share are torn down and mocked by bad faith critics. People will get their jollies using character.ai while knowing full well that the program is a branch of ChatGPT, scraping fanfiction without author's consent or credit. We get re-uploaded and plagiarized. Just look at the recent James Somerton debacle. It's not a good time to be an illustrator or animator, but it's not a good time to be a writer either. We just saw one of the biggest writers' strikes in history, an event spurred on by threats to replace thousands of people with half-baked, thieving AI models, and paychecks that kept people vital to the creative process living in squalor. This isn't a call-out post, and I'm not trying to say that Calobi has committed some unconscionable sin. Not being a seasoned screenwriter or having a limited perspective isn't a crime. It's normal. The point is, writing is important. Our drawings was a monumental undertaking, and good on Calobi for putting themselves out there and giving it a shot. I'm sure they learned a lot from their experience, and it takes guts to take on something like that and put it out there for anyone to see. I had fun thinking about and watching it, even if I find it to be a deeply flawed piece of work. That still counts for something. Calobi, if you're out there, other creatives are your brothers. We share a lot of the same struggles, and we can stand to learn from each other. Big productions like movies and cartoons are created through the collaboration of many artists with many different skills. Even the great American novel needs an editor. I think if you take on another project like this in the future, you should consider finding writers and editors to team up with. I get the fear that additional voices might dilute your vision, but consider how they might add to it too. How they might be able to expand your perspectives and account for your weaknesses. Consider how the final product could be greater than the sum of its parts. Beatboxing Puppy.